The world ended with the scent of cheap incense, and the sharp bite of betrayal still on my tongue. I died with my mother's lie ringing in my ears. "We did it for your good, Liora." She had said it calmly, handing me over like a transaction. No tears, no hesitation, just a trembling signature on a marriage contract and a dowry receipt signed in blood. They sold me for 80,000 yuan to a man who smelled of liquor and rot, whose touch made my skin crawl and whose fists came faster than his words. At 23, I died trying to escape that life. Thrown from a moving car and left to bleed out on the roadside like I was never meant to exist. But fate wasn't done with me. I opened my eyes. Not in a morgue, not in a hospital, but in my childhood bedroom staring at the torn poster of a pop idol I hadn't liked in years. My hands were small again, soft, untouched by hard labor or broken bones. The calendar on the desk said, March 7th, 2015. I had been reborn. And this time, I wasn't going to beg for love. This time, I would make them all pay. The first thing I noticed was the silence. Not the kind that comes from peace, but the suffocating quiet of a house that never really felt like home. My room looked exactly the same as I remembered it at 16. Faded lilac walls, cracked ceiling, a wooden wardrobe leaning slightly to the left from the weight of forgotten dreams. Even the single dangling bulb above my bed flickered like it still remembered how much I hated the dark. I sat up too fast, my head spinning. My legs were thinner, my arms shorter. I knew this body. It was mine. Before the beatings, before the scars, before the years of learning how to disappear. Inside myself, I rushed to the mirror across the room, barefoot on cold tiles. The face that stared back at me wasn't the broken woman I had become. It was the girl, me, 16-year-old Liora Song, still naive, still stupidly hopeful. But that girl was dead. She had died with me on that roadside. And whatever I was now, reborn or resurrected, I was done being her. I heard it before I saw it. The argument, the kind of yelling that starts in whispers and ends in slammed doors and shattered porcelain. I crept to the staircase and sat halfway down, the way I used to when I was little and still believed I had a real family. My mother's voice, Myling Song, was clipped and venomous, laced with the same cold practicality that had sentenced me to a living hell. It's final, Jian. She's turning 17 in a few months. The Chen family made an offer. We can't afford to say no. She's not a cow for sale, May. She's our daughter. That was my father, Jian Song. A man with a spine made of wet paper and a mouth that only remembered how to speak after damage had been done. His voice always trembled when he tried to oppose her, and as always, he failed. You're forgetting who paid for your brother's debt. They didn't just take care of Jihao's hospital bills for charity. My brother, Jihao, the golden child, the crown prince of this rotting palace. He had gambled half our future away at university and nearly died when his loan sharks came to collect. Myling had begged the Chen family for help, wealthy merchants who wore crocodile smiles and smelled like corruption. They agreed on one condition: me. I had been sold before I even knew the price of my body. I returned to my room, cold with rage but clear with purpose. My fingers trembled as I opened the drawer beneath the bed. It was still there, a tiny spiral-bound notebook with my dreams scrawled in childish cursive. I flipped to the back pages. March 2015. It all started here. 3 months from now, they would marry me off to the Chen family's second son, Hanshin, a 32-year-old brute with a fake smile and fists like iron. By April, the bruises would start. By May, I'd attempt to run. By December, I would be dead, but not this time. I had 91 days to rewrite everything. I started with the obvious. I faked a headache the next morning and refused to go to school. Myling didn't argue. School had never been a priority. She thought I was too soft for real success and too plain to marry up. She had called me useless rice behind closed doors. Today she just threw me a cold glance and left with her morning tea, heels clicking like gunshots. I waited until the house was empty. Then I got to work. There was a public library across the street from the food market. I had visited it once as a child, during a school trip, but never again. In my first life, I didn't know how to research, how to build protection, how to document abuse. I learned those skills much too late. This time, I wanted to get ahead. I checked out every book I could find on personal finance and saving under guardianship laws, domestic abuse protection measures, how to access youth legal aid, and most importantly, family inheritance law, because my parents might not know it yet, but I wasn't just going to stop them from selling me. I was going to take everything they had. I played my part well. At dinner, I smiled and offered to help with chores. I complimented Jihao on his new watch, stolen money no doubt. I even kissed Mei Ling's cheek goodnight, a thing I had not done since I was 9. She narrowed her eyes, suspicious, but not enough to question a daughter suddenly eager to. Please. That was the thing about my mother. She only saw what she wanted to see. My weapon wasn't a gun or a knife. It was information. By the end of the week, I'd found out everything. The name of the lawyer who handled my illegal guardianship transfer. The fake documents they used to push the marriage contract. The secret savings account Mei Ling had opened under her cousin's name to launder the Chen family's payment. Jihao's involvement in blackmailing one of his professors. I wrote it all down, made copies, and hid them in 3 separate locations, a hollowed-out dictionary, my school locker, and the back panel of my wardrobe. I wasn't going to make the same mistake twice. No more trusting people. No more assuming love meant safety. I had 90 days. 90 days before the papers were signed. 90 days before my life was stolen. 90 days before I was buried again. This time alive in a cage of wealth and violence. But in this life, I wasn't the lamb. I was the hunter. And this time, when I brought my family down, I'd do it with a smile. The trick to survival wasn't strength. It was theater. A girl who smiles when she's dying, who says thank you with bruised lips and calls her cage a home. She's invisible, safe. The kind of girl no one suspects until it's too late. I became that girl again. But this time, the mask was mine to control. Liora, Mei Ling called from the kitchen, don't forget to wash Jihao's uniform before you leave. For school. He has basketball practice. I stirred my porridge and answered sweetly, of course, Mama. Not a flicker of guilt. Not even a hint of remorse in her tone. In my past life I would have argued, cried, slammed the door in defiance. But rebellion without power is just noise. I needed silence now. Silence sharp enough to slice through them when the time was right. Jihao was still asleep, sprawled on the couch with his shoes on, smelling like cheap perfume. And last night's beer. His uniform was crumpled beneath his back. I didn't bother touching it. Instead, I took a photo of the lipstick stain on his collar. His girlfriend was 17, and her father a local police officer. Another card for my deck. I packed my bag with quiet precision. Notebooks, library printouts, burner phone, memory card. Every item had a purpose, a timeline, a backup. Today was the day I met my first weapon in the war, Yu Xinyi. Yu Xinyi was my seatmate in Class 2B. Pretty, polished, and painfully aware of it. Her hair was always in a velvet ribbon, her nails neatly trimmed, her uniform altered just enough to suggest rebellion without consequence. In my first life, we barely spoke. I thought she was arrogant. She thought I was pathetic. We were both right. But what I hadn't known then was that Xinyi's father owned a struggling law firm, and she had full access to his office during weekends. More importantly, she had an older brother, Yu Fei, who was in law school and obsessed with justice. The kind of man who would burn down a kingdom if it meant protecting someone he believed in. All I had to do was make her believe in me. Xinyi. I whispered during homeroom, sliding her a folded note beneath the desk. Want to ruin a few rich men's lives for fun? She blinked at me, then smiled like a wolf finding a door left open. I thought you'd never ask. We met behind the library after school. She showed up in a mint green hoodie and black leggings, sipping on a milk tea too expensive for the average student. I came with documents. What's all this? She asked, arching an eyebrow as I handed her the manila folder. Insurance, I said. And proof. She opened it, skimmed the pages. Bank transfers, forged consent forms, transcripts of overheard conversations I'd remembered word for word from the first time around. Her eyes sharpened. The ribbon on her ponytail fluttered in the wind like a battle flag. You're serious. Deadly. What do you want? A plan, I said. Legal protection. Exposure when I say go. And silence until then. She leaned against the concrete wall, studying me as though she were reassessing a ghost. What's in it for me? I smiled. The Chen family destroyed 3 small businesses in your district last year. One of them was your cousin's bakery. Remember? Her hand clenched around the milk tea. Give me 90 days, I said. Then I'll give you their heads. That night, I drew up the plan in the back of my dream journal, behind the false pages I had cut. With a razor. Phase 1, surveillance and leverage. Collect proof of Jihao's underage gambling. Relationship with police officer's daughter. Record phone calls between Meiling and Chen Patriarch. March 15th, April 1st. Extract household financial data and identify hidden accounts. Phase 2, escape clause. Use legal aid loopholes to trigger underage marriage protection laws. Create independent savings account under government youth grant program. Submit anonymous tip to social services with evidence. Phase 3, public execution. Release evidence to media and law school connections. Leak bank fraud to tax bureau. Demand inheritance settlement post-scandal under emotional distress and civil harm clause. I would burn them quietly. From the inside out. 1 week later, on a rain-heavy Thursday, I stood in the backyard, barefoot in mud, pretending to pick vegetables from Meiling's neglected garden. She stood at the window, watching me. Her silhouette was rigid, tense. Maybe she was suspicious. Maybe she just hated the sight of me mimicking domesticity, but I smiled at her. I even waved. The woman who had sold me was watching her daughter turn into something she couldn't read anymore. She didn't know yet, but she had already lost. There are 3 kinds of secrets. The ones you bury, the ones you weaponize, and the ones that bury you. I had all 3. My 17th birthday came with plastic flowers, a cake from the clearance rack, and a lie. Thick enough to suffocate in. Smile, Liora, Meiling chirped, snapping a photo with her aging phone. You're lucky your fiancé is so generous. He paid for this cake. The frosting turned sour in my mouth. Hanshin, my so-called fiancé, the man who would beat me for burning rice and call it discipline. He hadn't paid for this. I remembered. He paid for nothing. The marriage was a transaction. I was the payment. In the first life, this was the night they told me that I was being married off for the good of the family, like some sacrificial lamb draped in second-hand lace. But in this life, I already knew. I was ready. So when Meiling placed the cheap silver ring box in front of me and said, "Try it on," I didn't cry. I smiled. And that scared her. I waited until after dinner, when the air was thick with the smell of cheap candles and tension. Meiling and Jian were whispering in the kitchen. Jihao had already left for a study session, likely a card game with borrowed money. I stood in the hallway, perfectly still, listening. You should have told her next week. She's acting strange lately. She's grateful, not strange. She even washed my coat yesterday. She's up to something. Mark my words, Jian. Then you handle it. She listens to you. She used to. Good. Let her feel the shift. Let her sense the ghost rising from the ashes of the girl she destroyed. The next morning, I skipped school with a forged excuse note and took the early bus to the industrial district. Yu Xinyi had arranged a meeting. It was a rundown cafe. Formica tables, sputtering fan, the smell of fried oil clinging to every surface. But the man waiting in the corner booth was exactly what I needed. Yu Fei. Tall, serious, too sharp for his age. His law school badge was pinned crookedly to his blazer, and his fingers tapped rhythmically on a stack of legal documents. "You're younger than I expected," he said, eyes scanning me like a witness on trial. "And you're more skeptical than I need," I replied. He smiled faintly. "Touché." Xinyi slid a folder toward him. Inside, proof of the arranged marriage, my forged consent signature, financial documents, a typed-out statement of emotional abuse. Fei flipped through it in silence, page after page. When he reached the bank records, his brow furrowed. "You said this account belongs to your mother's cousin?" "Yes." "And this transfer was made 3 days after the Chen family cleared your brother's debt?" "Yes." "And you're willing to go public?" "Only when I've made them bleed enough to feel it." He leaned back. "You're not just looking for protection," he said. "You want retribution." I met his eyes. "I want justice. But I'll take vengeance too." Over the next 2 weeks, the threads began to pull. Fei filed a sealed letter with a family court, detailing the arrangement and requesting a preemptive injunction based on psychological duress. 2. Xinyi used her father's office fax to anonymously report Jihao's underage gambling and attach security footage she retrieved from the bar he frequented. 3. I leaked photos of the bank account's transaction history to a local blogger known for financial exposes under a fake email address. Every move made the foundation under Meiling's house tremble. But I wasn't done. April 3rd. A Wednesday. Jihao didn't come home that night. The phone rang just after midnight. I stood in the hallway pretending to sleep as Meiling's voice shattered into fragments. "You're arresting him?" "But no, this is a mistake. He's just a boy. Please, we'll fix it. Just don't press charges." She dropped the phone. Jian sat frozen, the weight of his passivity finally crushing his chest. Jihao had been caught cheating at a card table belonging to the local triad's nephew. He owed them money, again. And this time, there was no Chen family to bail them out. Because Hanshin had gone silent. I made sure of it. I had stolen Meiling's phone 3 nights earlier and replaced the SIM card. All her calls to the Chen family now led to a disconnected line. The real SIM sat in a USB case under Xinyi's bed. I listened to her leave message after message on my burner phone. Desperate, confused, angry. "Hanshin, we need your help. Please, call back. This isn't part of the agreement. Where's the money?" I knew why he wasn't answering. Because I had forwarded his financial records and false marriage contracts to his father, the Chen patriarch, and hinted, ever so delicately, that a minor was involved, and the authorities might come. Knocking. The Chen family didn't fear scandal. They feared losing control. And they were beginning to realize they no longer had it. That Friday, Meiling cornered me in the living room. Her eyes were red, wild, her face pale beneath too much powder. "You know something," she said. "I know a lot of things," I replied. "Shihao's in jail. Your engagement is in jeopardy. Everything is falling apart. And you're calm." I tilted my head. "Is that so unusual?" She grabbed my wrist, nails digging in. "What did you do?" And then I leaned in, whisper soft. "You should have saved me when you had the chance." I pulled my arm free and walked away. She didn't follow. She didn't even speak. The silence was enough. 90 days was what I gave myself. Now I had 43, and in 43 days my family's name would be Ash. Not because I hated them, not even because they sold me, but because they thought I'd die quietly. They forgot. I had already died once. Some inherit kingdoms of gold. I inherited debt, shame, and a mother's betrayal. But the thing about ashes is this. They make excellent soil for growing empires. The house smelled like burnt rice and fear. Meiling hadn't cooked in 3 days. Jian was either drunk or pretending to sleep, and I found myself standing in the kitchen, watching the ants crawl toward a cracked sugar jar like they sensed the rot in this house went deeper than spilled syrup. The Chen family had officially withdrawn the marriage offer. The news came in a letter, crisp, typed, unsigned, delivered by courier like a death notice. Meiling screamed when she read it. Jian said nothing. Jihao was still in custody. I, however, was thriving. On April 16th, Yu Fei called. The injunction is in motion. We've flagged the marriage as coercive. You'll be legally shielded from all future attempts until you turn 18. He paused. You're safe now. Safe. It didn't feel like safety. Not yet. Not while Meiling still breathed the same air. Not while Jean still pretended his silence wasn't another form of complicity. Not while the money they made selling me still paid the bills. So I told Fei, that's not enough. And he said nothing. But I knew he understood. Step by step, I fed the blaze. 1. The power company received an anonymous report of unpaid bills being covered through embezzled community funds. 2. The private lender who had backed Jihao's hospital bill was tipped off about irregular repayment schedules, along with copies of Meiling's hidden ledger. 3. The school board was informed of Jian's mental stress and absenteeism, citing student complaints about incoherent lectures. This family wasn't just built on silence, it was built on fraud, and I was going to take back every cent they ever made using my name. People began to notice. The neighbors whispered when Meiling stepped outside. Someone spray-painted "Marriage traitor" on our back gate. At school, teachers began treating me differently, less like a problem, more like a survivor. Xinyi had something to do with that. She was playing my public relations game now, leaking bits of my rescue story to sympathetic teachers and youth counselors. I was becoming the girl they almost destroyed, but couldn't. April 27th. Meiling caught me in the garage, holding her hidden account ledger. I had broken into the safe, with the help of YouTube tutorials and the metal tip of an old compass. Her voice was hoarse. "Put it down." I didn't. "Where did you get that?" "Where do you think?" I said. It's amazing what thieves hide behind charity receipts. She stepped forward, shaking. "You think this makes you powerful?" she hissed. "You are nothing without this family." I smiled, slow. That's the point. And then I did something I'd never done before. I walked past her without flinching. That night, Jian came to my room. His eyes were bloodshot. His tie was loosened like he'd forgotten how to be a man. "I didn't know," he said. "I swear to you, Liora." I said nothing. He sat down on the edge of my bed like a ghost trying to remember it once had flesh. "She told me it was a favor, that the Chens would only sponsor your education. I didn't think, didn't." "You didn't care," I said quietly. He flinched. "Do you want to be forgiven?" I asked. He looked up. "Then testify," I said, "in court. Sign a statement. Say everything she did. Say you let her." He paled. "She's my wife. She was never a mother." May 1st. The civil court admitted my petition. Jian's written statement gave them reason to reopen an investigation into Meiling's financial fraud and abuse history. The judge froze her accounts pending review. She couldn't access the money she sold me for. She couldn't hide. For the first time in 17 years, she looked like the one trapped. I stared at the same mirror I'd looked into the night I woke in this life. But I wasn't the same girl. The bruises were gone, but the memory of them had become armor. The voice that used to tremble now sharpened into blades. The mirror didn't reflect a child anymore. It reflected a queen rising from the wreckage of a counterfeit dynasty. There's more than one kind of inheritance. Some inherit houses. Others inherit names. I inherited silence, and now, I was ready to cash it in. The courtroom wasn't as grand as I expected. It was dusty, cramped. A single flickering ceiling fan struggled to cut through the humidity. The judge looked tired, the clerk looked bored. But I didn't need spectacle. I needed signatures. Gian sat 2 rows behind me. He hadn't shaved, and his knuckles trembled around the statement he'd sworn under oath. Myling didn't show. Her lawyer claimed medical distress. I wasn't surprised. Cowards often hide behind prescription slips when they realize they've lost control. But the evidence was too strong now. The fake marriage consent forms, with my forged signature. The bank statements, linking the dowry money to private debts. The recorded calls, in Myling's own voice, confirming the transaction. The judge granted a protective decree against future family arrangements, and more importantly, he froze all assets belonging to Myling Song and Jian Song until a civil financial review could be conducted. In other words, the house wasn't theirs anymore, and neither was the money they tried to sell me for. Back home, the mood had curdled. Myling locked herself in her room for hours, curtains drawn like a tomb. Jian drank openly now. He'd started watching old home videos like they could wash his conscience clean, and the neighbors no longer smiled when they passed our gate. They whispered. The silence in the house was thick, toxic. I stayed in my room, watching it all decay. Every crack in the wall, every unpaid bill, every fading photograph that used to feature me in the corner, smiling, small, erased, became a victory. But I wasn't done yet. Because money was only the beginning. One of the secrets Myling never told me was that my grandmother had a will. My father's mother. A quiet woman who used to sneak me candied hawthorn and whisper, "You're worth more than this, little swallow." She died when I was 9. And I remembered this from the first life. 3 years after my death, someone had tried to claim part of her estate, but it was blocked. Why? Because Myling never filed the will. She stole it, hid it, and never told Jian it existed. But I remembered the name of the lawyer my grandmother used. And this time, I looked him up. Wen Kai Legal Services was located in an old building that smelled like ink and tired ambition. Mr. Wen himself was 70 now, almost blind, but sharp as ever. He remembered my grandmother. "She called you her little hawthorn," he said, adjusting his spectacles. "She left you something." But the papers were never processed. I suspected foul play, but, well, no one came forward. I nodded. "I'm coming forward now." He retrieved the will from a locked filing cabinet. Still valid, still binding. And what did she leave me? 50% of the family land in her name. A joint savings account set aside for my education. Her collection of antique jewelry. All of it had been illegally absorbed by Myling, who claimed there was no will. But now I had it. With Wen Kai's help, we filed an injunction at the probate court. If successful, I would seize 1. Half the family land, including the garden and 2 rental units. 2. Access to a previously untouched bank account, now holding over 320,000 yuan. 3. Legal control over my grandmother's estate. Myling found out 3 days later. She burst into my room, hair unbrushed, slippers uneven. "Sue, ungrateful snake." I didn't look up from my workbook. "That's Miss Snake to you," I said. She threw something. Of us. It missed. And for the first time, Jian raised his voice. "Enough, Myling." She stared at him, then at me, then left. That was the moment I knew. She was crumbling. May 20th. The probate judge ruled in my favor. The will was valid. Myling was found guilty of concealing legal inheritance and forced to pay damages and transfer property rights. I walked out of the courthouse that day with ownership papers in my hand. At 17, I became the legal landlord of 2 rental properties and the rightful heir to the fortune they tried to erase me from. I should have been happy. I had taken back what was mine. But walking home through the broken streets of our district, something gnawed at me. Because even now, with Myling disgraced and Jian defeated, I still slept in the same room, where my dreams had once died. I was rich on paper, but I still felt like the girl they left behind. So, I made a new vow. Not just to reclaim, to rise. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about power. Freedom doesn't knock. It claws at the window, howling until you let it in, or until it breaks the glass. I didn't wait anymore. I broke the glass. I signed the ownership papers at exactly 9:06 a.m., in a gray room with cracked leather chairs, and a clerk who didn't bother to look me in the eye. Maybe I was just another underage girl with something she shouldn't have. But once that stamp hit the page, the world shifted. From that moment on, I became the legal owner of 2 rental units and 1/2 acre of family land, previously registered under my grandmother's name, quietly usurped by Myling. For years, Jian tried to talk to me after. Liora, maybe we can work something out, share the income, divide the rent, live as a family. I looked him dead in the eye and said, family doesn't come after the sale. He didn't follow me when I left. He didn't call after me. He just stood there like a man watching his own funeral unfold in real time. The rental units were in disrepair, nothing shocking. Faded walls, leaky pipes, tenants who hadn't had working heat in 3 months. Myling hadn't maintained anything. She'd collected rent in cash under the table and pocketed it all. I showed up to the first unit with a clipboard, a new locksmith, and a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Who are you?" the tenant asked, an older woman with sharp eyes and a sharper tone. "I'm the new landlord," I said, handing her a legal notice. "And I'm not mailing." Her expression changed instantly. "You're her daughter?" "I was," I said. "Now I'm your landlord, and I'm here to make things right, so long as you're willing to meet me halfway." By the end of the week, I'd installed new locks, begun plumbing repairs with help from a maintenance student at Xinyi's University, and collected my first clean rent payment, complete with receipts, contracts, and city registration. I made 5,800 yuan that month. It wasn't a fortune, but it was mine. I opened a private account under my legal name as a minor with independent asset claims. With help from Yu Fei, I even set up a basic savings growth plan for long-term returns. It felt surreal, seeing a balance with more than 3 digits after years of begging for toothpaste. I bought myself a prepaid phone, a second-hand laptop, and a proper pair of shoes. Everything else went into what I called the get-out fund, because even with the assets and the victory, I knew one thing. This city wasn't safe, not for a girl who'd survived being sold. I wasn't the only one making moves. Hanshin, the man who once claimed me as his bride, returned, not in person, not yet, but in message. Xinyi forwarded me the first photo, a black car parked across from her father's office. The license plate matched the one Hanshin used in my first life. Then came the second photo. 2 men loitering near my rental unit with a clipboard, pretending to check gas lines. "Do you want me to file a report?" Xinyi asked. "No," I said, "not yet, because I needed to know what he wanted." I'd humiliated the Chen family. The marriage was dead. The money was tainted. And yet, he was circling. That meant he still thought I was valuable. In my first life, Hanshin was never interested in love. He wanted obedience, silence, and a pretty doll to put on his arm while he ran illegal exports and laundered money through fake businesses. I didn't know that back then, but I knew it now. And if he was circling again, it wasn't because he missed me. It was because I had something he needed: Land, property, independence, legal protection. He wanted control over me because I had clawed my way out. 3 days later, John brought an envelope to my door. "I'm just the messenger," he said. Inside was a sleek business card and a letter, gold trim, expensive paper signed by Henshin's assistant. The message was simple. "Let's discuss the future. We believe there's still a mutually beneficial path, no? Pressure. Just a conversation." I laughed out loud. It was the softest version of a threat I'd ever seen. Sinyi wanted to burn the letter. Yufei wanted me to file for protective surveillance, but I wanted something else. To meet him. I agreed to a public meeting, broad daylight, outside a bank, surrounded by people. He came, of course, dressed in a gray suit, smiling like we were old lovers. "You've grown up," he said. "Quite well, in fact." I didn't respond. He leaned in, voice low. "All this fire. Is it really worth the ashes you're building it on?" "Is that a threat?" I asked. He chuckled. "An observation. You should get your eyes checked," I said. "I'm not the girl you bought. I'm the storm you unleashed." I walked away before he could speak again. I knew now, the past wasn't done with me, but neither was the future. I had land. I had legal backing. I had allies who believed in me. And most importantly, I had my name back. Not as a daughter. Not as a bride, but as a girl who bought her own future. From the wreckage of those who sold her. They couldn't own me anymore, so they tried to erase me instead. But I had learned something far more dangerous than silence. I had learned to speak. It started quietly, like a virus in a clean wound. A whisper here, a rumor there. That I'd forged the will. That I'd seduced Hanshin, then betrayed him. That I'd blackmailed my family. That Jian wasn't even my real father. None of it was true. But truth doesn't win in gossip courts. Volume does. And Mealing had found her voice again, through neighbors, local tea shop owners, the school, janitor, even the church bulletin. By the time I returned to school on Monday, the halls felt colder. I walked into homeroom and silence followed me like smoke. Even the teacher, Mr. Guo, avoided my eyes. A girl named Yu moved her chair an inch away when I sat down. Someone had scratched, "Slut, landlord," onto my locker in red ink. Xinyi was furious. "I can report this," she said, already pulling out her phone. But I shook my head. Because this wasn't just bullying. It was strategy. They were trying to shame me out of power. To turn the very voice I'd used to win my freedom into something vulgar, embarrassing, unclean. So I did what they never expected. I gave them the truth. I signed up for the end-of-term speech contest, held during the school assembly in front of the entire student body, faculty, and guest parents. Topic: what home means to me. I prepared the speech in secret. Xinyi helped polish the grammar. Fei suggested a few legal references. But the heart of it? That was mine. The auditorium was packed. Over 400 people. Students, teachers, parents, and, somewhere in the back, Mei-ling. And Jian. I felt their eyes like knives. I walked on stage in my school uniform, no makeup, no flair. Just a mic and the truth. Good morning. My name is Liora Song, and I used to think home was the place. You return to when the world breaks you. But I learned something else. Sometimes home is the place that breaks you. The air tightened. I was sold off by my family, told it was for my good. I was 17, barely, and traded like property. They called it duty. I call it violence. But I didn't die. I didn't stay quiet. I didn't disappear. I stood up. I went to court. I claimed what was mine. And I stand here today, not because I want pity, but because I know I'm not the only one. The silence was deafening. Then, clapping. It started slow. A single student. Then another. Then the entire room was on their feet, not for the pain, but for the defiance. The next day, Mailing's reputation, already fragile, shattered. The speech went viral after Shinny's older brother uploaded it online with the tag, #NotYourDaughter. Local media picked it up, then national bloggers. People began digging into court records, into Jian's silence, into Mailing's fake charity work and fraudulent inheritance handling. She was called in for questioning by the Bureau of Civil Welfare within 48 hours. By the end of the week, she was removed from her neighborhood's community council. Her name became a warning. Not a woman. Not a mother. Just a cautionary tale. I didn't hide anymore. I reclaimed my locker, scraped off the words, put up a sign that read, "A girl's worth isn't up for sale." Students who once whispered now nodded at me in the hallway. Some approached. Quietly. Cautiously. "Your speech. My cousin's going through something like that. Thank you for saying it out loud." Even Mr. Guo apologized. "You're braver than most adults I know." Hanshin's silence broke too. He sent a single letter to my rental unit. "You humiliated me. You've taken what's mine, and I'll make you pay for it." No signature. But I didn't need one. I knew his tone like I knew the rhythm of trauma. He wanted revenge. I pinned the letter to my vision board under one word. Expected. They tried to put me on auction again. This time not my body, but my name. But they underestimated the girl who had died once already. You can't sell what's already been reclaimed. You can't shame what refuses to bow. And you can't silence the girl who learned how to roar. Some monsters hide behind masks. Others wear tailored suits and speak in velvet tones. But the most dangerous ones? They don't hide at all. They believe they own you. It was raining when Hanshin arrived. Not with thugs, not with lawyers. Just himself. He stood outside my rental unit in a gray cashmere coat, his shoes polished to a mirror shine. He smiled up at the camera I'd installed above the door and waited. Like a man knocking politely before kicking it in. Sini called me. He's there. I know. I watched from the upstairs window. I wasn't afraid. I was ready. I opened the door slowly, kept the safety chain in place. Hanshin smiled like he was greeting a lover, not a girl he once tried to own. "Liora. Or do you prefer Miss Song now?" "I prefer you leave. I came to talk. Just talk. So talk and go." He leaned slightly, the chain between us taut. "You've made a mess, but I'm offering you a way out. We drop the past, we work. Together. I could invest in your properties. You could use a business partner. And, in return?" His smile sharpened. Loyalty, exclusivity, silence. I met his gaze without blinking. "You had your chance to buy me, Hanshin. You lost. You don't get a discount now." I shut the door in his face. 2 days later, the glass storefront of Shinny's father's office was shattered with a brick in the dead of night. No note. Just silence. But I knew who did it. Then came the second strike, a hacking attempt on my bank account. My lawyer was able to freeze it in time, but it was clear now. Hanshin was done playing games. I dug deeper. Faye helped me access sealed court documents from a town 2 provinces over. There it was. Hanshin's first engagement. Age 25. The girl. Gone. Missing. The case had been closed as voluntary disappearance. But her diary had been recovered. Her parents had filed a complaint. It never went anywhere. Why? Chen, family money. Reading the excerpts, I felt sick. It was all there. The possessiveness, the threats, the isolation, the same promises he whispered to me. Hanshin didn't love women. He consumed them. This time I went on the offensive. I leaked excerpts of the diary through an anonymous forum. Not directly linked to Hanshin, but close enough that his name trended on local platforms. I called it Notes from a Silenced Bride. It didn't go viral, but it made noise. The Chen family issued a statement within 24 hours denying any connection to the anonymous allegations. That denial was all I needed, because now it was public record. I should have seen it coming. The window was smashed, her family's cat poisoned, her father shoved outside a grocery store. By unknown men. She sat across from me in my room, hands shaking. He's trying to ruin us. Not trying, I said. He's succeeding. She looked at me, tears in her eyes. Is this worth it, Liora? All of it. I wanted to say yes. To say, we're winning. But for the first time since my rebirth, I wasn't sure. Because he wasn't just hurting me anymore, he was hurting the people I loved. That night, I stared into the mirror and asked myself the real question. What am I willing to become? To win? Am I willing to threaten? To fight fire with fire? To step into the monster's world and outmonster him? The answer came from deep inside. Whatever it takes. Faye made a call. A woman answered. She didn't give her name, but I recognized the tone. Sharp, calm, ruthless. I've been watching you, Liora. You've caused quite the ripple. And you are? Let's just say I've been burned by the Chen family too. I'm offering support. Why now? Because no one tears down dynasties better than the ones they underestimated. She wasn't an ally. She was a scalpel. But I took the offer. Because this was war now. And wars weren't won by innocence. They were won by blood and strategy. Hanshin made a mistake. He came after the wrong girl. Not the Liora he bought. The Liora who rebuilt herself with fire. And I'm not running anymore. I'm hunting. Every empire has a secret it's built on. And every legacy has a rot at its core. I wasn't just going to expose Hanshin. I was going to burn down everything that ever protected him. She called herself Ms. Lay. No full name? No traceable record? She met me in a quiet noodle shop 3 districts away, sat across from me in a black trench coat, and didn't touch her tea. I'm not here to protect you, she said. I'm here to give you the blade you need. What kind of blade? I asked. She slid over a USB drive. A history lesson. When I plugged it in at home, I realized it wasn't just a weapon. It was an atomic bomb. The USB contained internal financial records going back 15 years, secret company ledgers hidden behind front businesses, confidential settlements involving abuse cases tied to Hanshin and his uncle. One document titled simply, Chi Air Fraud. That last one changed everything. Because it said Hanshin's birth certificate was forged, that his father, Chen Yong, had falsified paternity to protect an affair. Hanshin was not a legal heir under Chen family law, which meant Hanshin had no legitimate claim to anything. Not to the family wealth, not to the properties, not to the Chen name. And if I exposed this, it wouldn't just hurt Hanshin. It would collapse the entire Chen dynasty. Faye was the first to push back. You're playing with real fire now, he said, pacing. These aren't school bullies or crooked parents. This is generational power. Corporate bloodlines. Men who disappear. Problems with a phone call. I'm not afraid, I said. He stopped. Then you're not thinking hard enough. But I had thought. And I'd already decided. I was going to take this all the way. Because until the Chen name was dragged through the same dirt they buried girls like me in, this war wasn't over. We needed proof. Legal proof. Rumors and files weren't enough. That's where Jian came in. He was scared, but not stupid. He met me at a tea house near the bus station and asked just one question. Will it hurt them the way they hurt you? Yes, I said. Worse. He nodded. Then I'll help. We used a contact Faye had at the municipal registry to request Hanshin's sealed birth documents. It took a bribe, a favor, and a legal loophole, but we got it. And it confirmed everything. Hanshin's DNA didn't match the Chen patriarch. The heir of the Chen family was a fraud. I posted the document anonymously to a journalist known for exposing elite corruption, along with financial records, abuse cover-ups, the settlements, 3 hours after the post went live, #ChenDynastyFraud began trending. 12 hours later, the Chen Group stock dropped 17%. The patriarch was summoned for questioning. Hanshin disappeared from the public eye, and the whispers turned to roars. But I wasn't ready for Meiling's last move. Cornered, broke, reputation in ruins. She played her final card. She went public. A video surfaced of her sobbing on a local news show, painting herself as a victim. I didn't know the marriage was abusive. I just wanted to save my son. My daughter was troubled, unstable. She hurt the whole family. I wish I had protected her better. The crocodile tears, the motherly regret. It almost worked. For a second, the tide wavered. But I had something better. A voice recording, the one I'd kept from early on, where she said, "She's of age in 3 months. The Chens want her now. Sign the paper. She's just a girl. Mailing. She's our debt." I released it. The public turned. Her sympathy evaporated. And for the first time, the world saw her the way I always had, not as a mother, but as a merchant of blood. Hanshin was gone. The Chen family was in free fall. Meiling was disgraced. Jian was silent. But I wasn't celebrating. Because revenge doesn't feel like victory. It feels like mourning the person who had to become this. Still, I didn't stop. Because I hadn't reached the end. Not until I took back everything, including the fortune they built on my ruin. I had taken back the land. I had burned the lies. I had shattered the dynasty that once owned me. But no one tells you what comes after revenge. No one prepares you for the silence that follows justice. Because even when you win, you're still standing in the ruins. 3 weeks after the Chen family imploded, a letter arrived at my doorstep. This time from someone unexpected. The Zhen Corporation, one of the largest conglomerates in East Asia. A giant in property, logistics, pharmaceuticals. Their CEO, Zhen Qianyi, was a woman whispered about in boardrooms like a myth. She had clawed her way up from factory dust to corporate marble. The letter was simple. "We have followed your recent legal endeavors with interest. We believe someone, with your intelligence, resilience, and instinct, would be an asset to our internal operations. Full scholarship to our youth executive program. Relocation included. Post-completion pathway into corporate management. In short, a future. And at the bottom, handwritten. You've proven you can destroy. Now, let's see if you can build." It felt surreal. Months ago, I had been a discarded girl. Now, a corporation was inviting me to shape the future. I didn't respond immediately. Not because I wasn't tempted, but because I didn't trust anything tied up in silken signatures. So I dug into the Zhen Corporation. Their executive program was real, competitive, brutal. But the people who graduated it went on to shape policy, innovation, even global aid, organizations. Still, their interests weren't always clean, and Zhen Qianyi was known to mentor only those who reminded her of herself. Ruthless. I visited the tower downtown. Their local HQ. They welcomed me like a guest of honor. Every corridor was polished, every voice a calculation. Zhen Qianyi herself met me on the 42nd floor. She was in her late 40s, dressed in gray silk and red heels, her hair tied in a knot sharp enough to cut steel. "I don't pity girls like you," she said. "I admire you." I didn't smile. "This world wasn't made for girls who survive," she continued. "It was made for girls who adapt. You adapted. Now, do you want to own more than your pain?" She slid a contract across the glass table. "Say yes, and I give you the power to shape the world. Say no, and you return to your little rentals and lawsuits. Both are victories. But only one makes history." I looked at the pen, then at her. Then I asked quietly, "What happens if I become you?" She smiled, sharp. "Then no one will ever own you again." That night, I sat alone in my rented room, Contract unopened on the bed. I thought about the girl I used to be, the one who begged to be loved, the one who believed. Survival was enough. Then I thought about the girl I had become, the one who tore down empires. Was I ready to stop fighting? Was I ready to build? Or was I still chasing vengeance in prettier clothes? I signed the contract, not because I trusted her, but because I finally trusted me. I named my own conditions. Independent housing, not dorms. No NDA on my past. Access to legal counsel for all assignments. They agreed, because I had proven I wasn't just a survivor. I was a negotiator, a strategist, a woman. Before I left, I visited my old home one last time. The windows were boarded, the front gate rusted. No one lived there anymore. I left no note, no apology, no forgiveness, just a single rose on the step. For the girl who died here, for the girl who rose. They once named my price. They once sold me like I was disposable. But now, I've named my future. And it's not for sale, because I'm not the girl they buried. I'm the girl who rebuilt her name into something unbreakable. There's a lie the world tells girls like me, that if we fight too hard, too loud, or too well, we must have become monsters. But no one ever asks why we needed claws in the first place. I didn't rise from my ashes to apologize for burning. The Gen Corporation headquarters rose like a blade above the city, an obsidian tower of glass. And power. I stepped into the elevator alone, no bags, just my contract, my courage, and a past that no longer held me. Floor 57, executive wing. As the doors opened, I caught my reflection in the mirrored steel. I didn't see the daughter, not the victim, not even the survivor. I saw the architect of her own future. Orientation began in a cold room with 12 others, all chosen from top schools, prestigious, families, or personal recommendations. They wore designer shoes and carried last names like weapons. They whispered when I walked in, "Is that her? The Chen girl?" I heard she sued her own mother. Looks normal. I expected fangs. Let them talk. They were bred in comfort. I was forged in fire. Our first session was with Qianyi herself. She wore black slacks, no jewelry, no smile. Lesson 1, she said, never waste power defending your pain. Use it to command the room. She pointed to me. Miss Song. They know your story. They want to use it to measure you. What do you say? I stood slowly. Stories are tools, I said. Let them pick mine up. I've already sharpened the edges, she nodded. The others stared. I was no longer just Liora. I was the threat in their midst. Our first challenge was a simulated acquisition. We were split into groups and told to pitch a hostile takeover of a fictional medical startup, an exercise in strategy, manipulation, and diplomacy. My team froze under pressure. The designated leader fumbled. So I took over, quietly, efficiently, ruthlessly. I identified the emotional weakness in the opposing pitch, the founder's legacy, exploited it by offering preservation of founder vision as a PR tactic, undermined the other team by revealing their silent investor had a real-world ethics. Scandal. We won. But I made enemies that day. The kind that smile in elevators and whisper into keycards. A week later, my housing was reassigned. Smaller room, no window, no explanation. I returned from class to find my tablet missing, the lock reset, my files scrambled. No one admitted it. But I knew. One of them was trying to break me. Not because I was weak, but because I was winning. They'll come for you harder because you didn't come from them, she said. So don't play their game. Make them play yours. That night, I rewrote the pitch assignment for the next challenge. Not just for my team, for the entire cohort. I used a flash drive and planted it anonymously in the shared printer folder. By morning, chaos. dozens of files overwritten, the simulation corrupted. Only one pitch stood intact, mine. I watched them scramble, accuse each other, unravel in confusion. I said nothing. Let them fear the shadow. I sat alone that night, eating instant noodles by the window of the break lounge. Faye called. "Are you okay?" "Yes." "You sound tired." "I'm not tired," I said. "I'm evolving." There was a pause. "Just don't lose the part of you that still feels." I didn't answer. Because part of me feared that I already had. I didn't come to the tower to fit in. I came to claim a future with my name carved into it. And if that future demands I become something colder, sharper, more feared than the people who once bought and betrayed me, then so be it. Because ashes don't apologize. They rise. When you fight for survival, you become an animal. When you fight for legacy, you become a machine. But when you fight for power, and you begin to enjoy it, that's when you become something else. His name was Yoon Jiran. He was the son of a banking titan, third-generation wealth, with an MBA at 21 and a smile that never reached his eyes. He walked into the boardroom late during a negotiation exercise, didn't apologize, didn't sit. Instead, he walked directly to the head of the table, looked at me and said, "You're Liora Song, the one who sued her mother, crashed a dynasty and now thinks she belongs here." He didn't say it with venom. He said it like a toast. I didn't flinch. "And you're Yoon Jiran, the one who inherited his father's teeth and thinks he's grown his own." Some of the room laughed. Others inhaled sharply. He sat across from me, leaned in. "Let's see how sharp your bite really is." The exercise was a mock negotiation between rival conglomerates competing for rights to a failing water purification company. Jiran led Team A. I led Team B. The room was divided into negotiators, strategy advisors, legal counsel, PR analysts. But it was clear from the start. It was really him versus me. His team came out aggressive, slick offers, legal traps, charm. Mine? I rebuilt from silence. We observed. We listened. And when they were overcommitted, I made a counteroffer through backdoor terms Jiran's legal rep had overlooked. By the time he realized the clause gave my side 51% control of the tech patents, it was too late. "You buried that clause," he hissed. "I placed it," I said. "You buried yourself." Later that evening, I found him waiting by the elevator. He wasn't angry. He was curious. "You don't negotiate like a student," he said. "You negotiate like someone who knows how it feels to be powerless." Because I do. He studied me. "You don't flinch. You don't gloat. You don't care what people think of you." I shrugged. "Did I win your approval?" "No," he said, stepping closer. "You earned my attention." His tone changed. "You're dangerous. That makes you interesting. And you're predictable," I said. "That makes you weak." I stepped into the elevator alone, and I smiled, because I saw it in his eyes. He thought he was the wolf, but he just met the one that doesn't howl, only hunts. That night I stood in the executive dorm bathroom staring at my reflection. I touched my cheek, my eyes, the expressionless mouth I'd taught myself to wear like armor. Was I becoming them? The monsters who raised me? The empire I dismantled? Or was I simply rising to meet a world that had already been built on teeth? I didn't have an answer. But I knew this. The mirror no longer showed the girl who had begged for love. It showed a wolf who had learned to survive the slaughterhouse. The next morning, a small package was left in my locker. No name, no note. Inside, a silver hairpin, carved like a fang, and a folded message. "You're not the only one who came from fire. But some of us choose to burn with it, instead of walking away." I recognized the calligraphy. Jiran. This wasn't a flirtation. It was a challenge, and I accepted it. There's something terrifying about realizing you're not afraid of losing anymore. Because if you've already lost everything once, you stop playing not to lose, and you start playing to win. Even if it costs you your softness, your mercy, your soul. Because in the world of wolves, only one thing matters. Who bites last? Some wounds scab over, others rot beneath the skin. And sometimes, the ones who cut you come back, not to say sorry, but to bleed on you again. He was thinner. Jihao stood outside my apartment building in a windbreaker too large for his frame, hair overgrown, fingers twitching like they were looking for something to steal. He didn't knock. He just waited, like a dog who once bit the hand that fed him, now hoping the hand had forgotten. I almost turned away, almost walked past him like a stranger, but I didn't. Because if I was going to bury the past, I wanted to see its face one last time. I didn't know, he said, as soon as I opened the lobby door. Didn't know what? I asked. Then they were going to sell you. I swear, Myling told me you wanted it, that you were in love. I stared at him. He shuffled his feet. Can we talk, just inside? I let him in. Not because I trusted him, but because part of me needed to hear what kind of man he thought he had become. He sat on my couch like he didn't belong there. He didn't. He looked around at the small studio, at the shelves lined with legal books and corporate binders. This is nice. I earned it. He nodded. Yeah, you always worked hard. I mean, why are you here, Jihao? The words hit like a blade. He flinched. I'm in trouble. Of course he was. Gambling, he said. Debt collectors. I tried to stop, I really did, but they took my phone, my ID. I don't even have a place to sleep. So you came to me? Your family. That word, that. Filthy. Broken word. In my first life, it was Jihao who held me down when I tried to run the night before the wedding. Jihao who said, stop crying, you'll make it worse. Jihao who turned the TV up when I screamed in the back room. Now here he was, begging for shelter from the storm he helped create. I just need a few thousand yuan, he said. Not forever. Just to breathe. I'm drowning, Liora. He looked at me. Not like a brother. Like a man sizing up a vault. You have it. I know you do. You're doing so well. You have everything now. He didn't say the rest, but I heard it in his silence. You took everything from us. You owe me. I stood, walked to the kitchen, poured 2 glasses of water, set one in front of him. Then said, Son, I'm going to give you one thing, Jihao. Just one. His eyes lit up. Thank you, Listen. He blinked. You were old enough to know what they were doing. You didn't stop them. You helped them. You silenced me. But I'm not you. I don't trade pain for more pain. I don't build my life on borrowed lungs. So I won't destroy you. I leaned forward. But I won't save you either. He didn't understand at first. Then he did. And the anger came. You think you're better than us now? Just because you wear suits and know how to talk to rich people? You're still from us. You're still one of us. You'll never be clean, Liora. I didn't flinch. I don't want to be clean. I want to be free. I opened the door. He didn't move. Until I said, leave, before I call the police. He left. He didn't look back. That night, I sat on my bed, the city glowing outside the window, and cried harder than I had in years. Not for him. Not for the betrayal. But for the part of me that still remembered sleeping in bunk beds with him. Still remembered sharing candy. Still remembered the brother I thought I had. That girl. She was gone now. And the woman left in her place? She didn't rescue ghosts. Some people come back into your life to make amends. Others come back to remind you what you survived. Jihao was never my redemption arc. He was proof, that I'd grown fangs for a reason, and I wasn't sorry for using them. Everyone loves a girl who survives. Until she fails. Then they call her reckless, arrogant, lucky, because they were waiting for the moment her crown cracked. And I gave them one. It was called Project Aria, a real-world expansion plan for a struggling tech startup, specializing in adaptive learning software for public education in rural provinces. Each executive mentee had 21 days to build a pitch, meet with local partners, and present a full proposal before the Gen board. Gen Qianyi didn't sugarcoat it. One of you will be chosen to lead the next stage. The others will be evaluated by how much they don't waste my time. I wanted it. I wanted it too badly. And that's where the trouble began. I skipped sleep, skipped meals, built the pitch deck, vetted vendors, drafted legal protections for IP, coordinated digital prototypes through outsourced coders. I took point on everything. And I made one mistake. I didn't check the back-end code. Because I trusted the vendor. And they sold me fake functionality masked by a demo loop. I didn't realize it until the board meeting. Too late. The moment the software glitched on screen, I knew. Silence bloomed like blood. Qianyi's expression didn't change. She didn't need to speak. The head of tech cleared her throat. Did your team validate this build? I swallowed. No. So you're saying we're looking at vaporware? Someone on the board chuckled. I couldn't tell who. And just like that, I wasn't the girl who took down dynasties. I was the girl who failed in front of a room full of giants. After the meeting, no one said it to my face, but I heard it in their footsteps, in the lack of eye contact, in the way Yunjiran looked at me and said, almost kindly, "It happens. First falls the loudest." I wanted to punch something. Instead, I sat in the courtyard alone that night, staring at the city I used to think I'd conquer with fire. Now, all I had was smoke. She came to me the next morning, alone, unscheduled, sat across from me in the cafeteria. No tray, no pity. Do you know why I didn't speak during the meeting? I shook my head. Because watching you bleed in silence was more important than saving your face. I blinked. You wanted me to suffer? I wanted you to survive your first real failure without apologizing for it. She leaned in. This is where most people fold. They fake accountability. They drown in shame. They go home, but not the ones who last. They study the wound. They build armor around it. They bleed forward. Then she stood and walked away. No praise, no warning, just truth. I didn't run. I didn't hide. I recontacted the vendors, exposed the fraud, filed a formal report. I offered full transparency to the board, even though it made me look worse short term. Then I redesigned the entire pitch, with a new concept, a new model, and no middlemen. By the end of the month, the board approved it for another mentee to lead, but they noted my recovery, my clarity, my ethics. And Qianyi? She passed me in the hallway and said, simply, well done. Power isn't in the rise. Anyone can rise once. Power is in the fall, in the way you refuse to stay down, in the way you teach your knees to get back up with fire still in your eyes. This was the chapter where I bled. And didn't die. They named me so they could own me. They raised me to forget I could rename myself. But I am not their daughter anymore. I am mine. It was just paperwork. 3 forms, 1 witness, 2 signatures. The clerk didn't even look at me twice. But when I slid the petition across the counter, requesting full legal removal of Song from my name and declaration of sole personal identity, my hands trembled. Not from fear, from the finality. Liora. No middle name. No family name? The woman behind the desk asked. That's right. She nodded. Stamped it. It'll take effect in 5 days. Just like that. I was no longer Liora Song. For 17 years, I wore a name that tasted like metal in my mouth. Song. Passed down from a man who watched me be sold. Song. Protected by a woman who turned my body into a bargaining chip. I used to think letting it go would feel like cutting off a limb, but it felt like lifting a boulder off my lungs. Now I was. Liora, a name that meant light, and for the first time, I chose to keep it. With the help of FA and a small grant from Gen Corporation's Social Innovation Fund, I launched a private foundation, the Undersigned Project. Its mission? Legal education for teen girls in high-risk households, free representation for minors facing forced marriage, emergency housing partnerships with vetted shelters. We started small, just 3 volunteers, 2 pilot schools, and an anonymous helpline. But the moment we opened the inbox, we received 12 cases. In 1 week, one of them was a 14-year-old girl in Anhui. Her aunt was trying to ship her off to a 40-year-old businessman. I read her email 3 times before responding. I believe you. We're coming. Yunjiran sent me a gift. A pen, silver, monogrammed. No note, except a message engraved along the side. To rewrite what tried to erase you. For once, I didn't read it as mockery. I read it as recognition. We were no longer rivals. We were something stranger. 2 weapons forged in different fires, nodding to each other across the battlefield. She called me to her office just before I launched the Foundation's beta program. You're not obligated to carry anyone, she said, pouring tea without looking up. And you owe nothing to the world that tried to ruin you. Then why build anything at all? She looked at me. Because when a woman builds something that saves others, it means they failed to destroy her. She handed me a folder, an expansion grant for the Undersigned Project. No ceremony, no press. Just power passed from one unbroken woman to another, Myling. She called me on the day my name change became official. The number was unlisted, the voice faint, sick. I saw the news, she said. Your little charity. It's not for you, I said. I know, I just... Silence. Then, what's your name now? Liora, I said. Just Liora. Yes, then I guess. I've lost the right to call you mine. You never had it. I ended the call. No tears. No closure. Just truth. They gave me their name so they could chain me to their shame. I gave it back, and wrote my own into the sky. Not as a survivor, not as a daughter, not as a victim, but as Liora. No last name, no chains, no apologies. Past doesn't knock. It breaks in thought. I buried Hanshin with the ruins of his name, but monsters don't die. You expose them. They mutate. And this time, he wasn't after me. He was after someone I couldn't afford to lose. Shelter received an anonymous donation, 40,000. No note, no sender. But the transaction ID matched an old Chen shell company I'd exposed months ago. It wasn't generosity. It was a signature. Hanshin was watching. 3 days later, the girl from Anhui went missing. The one who wrote me the email. The one we were about to relocate. Gone. Vanished. In the night, the ant said, ran away. But I knew the look in that woman's eyes. She hadn't run. She'd been taken. Faye traced the movement through 3 cities. Jiran used a private security contact to help me track digital pings, burner phones wiped, GPS falsified, hotel logs. It led us to a private clinic just outside Nanjing, the kind used to process trafficking victims under behavioral reform. And Hanshin's name was in the list of silent partners. It wasn't about money anymore. It was about control, dominance, retribution. He wanted to undo everything I'd built, and he knew how to hurt me now, not through bruises, through girls who looked like I once did. I paid someone to break into the clinic's secure records. I didn't ask how they got in. I just paid. We got proof. Receipts, video, documents, more than enough to bring the clinic down, and with it, Hanshin's last chain of silent influence. But I had to decide, take the information to the police? Or leak it all online, publicly, permanently, with no filter? Faye warned me. If you do this, there's no reversing it. It's not just Hanshin. You'll burn people with power. They'll come for you. I looked at the screen. At the girls on that list, at the name, Hanshin Chen, next to every single donor file. Then, let them come. I hit send. The next 48 hours were chaos. The clinic was raided. 4 board members were arrested. 1 tried to flee the country. News broke fast. International headlines this time. And the face of the storm? Mine. I didn't run from it. I owned it. Held a press conference. Named every name. Told the story of the girl who was once sold and came back to break the whole machine. The Foundation's servers were hit with malware. Our funding partners began to distance themselves. Jiran received a veiled threat through one of his father's clients. Shinyi's name was leaked alongside mine. We were targets again, but this time we weren't alone. Lawyers volunteered. Activists flooded our inbox. Whistleblowers came forward, because the truth is contagious, even when it's dangerous. He sent me a package. Inside, a torn page from the Chen family registry. It had my name on it, crossed out. Below it, in red marker, I may be outnumbered, but you will always be alone. I stared at it for a long time. Then I lit a match and watched it burn. Because he was wrong. I wasn't alone anymore. I thought I'd escaped him. But the final act of monsters is not violence. It's legacy. Hanshin wanted to be remembered in the ruin. So I gave him something better. Oblivion. People love a savior. Especially if she's quiet. Grateful. Forgiving. But I wasn't born to be saved. I was born to survive. And then to rise so high they couldn't reach me. The dust didn't settle. It scattered. My exposé went global. News outlets called me the girl who broke a dynasty. Social media painted me as a vigilante, a martyr, an icon. But none of them knew the truth. I wasn't a symbol. I was a girl who crawled out of a cage and kept walking until I could build my own gate. The Minister of Youth and Social Development reached out. A formal letter. We would like to invite you to serve as a national ambassador for at-risk youth. Your work with the undersigned project has proven life-changing. It came with a speaking tour, a book deal offer, and a cabinet-backed foundation grant 3 times our yearly budget. Everyone said it was a dream. I paused, because I remembered something Qianyi once told me. Power that's offered comes with a price tag you don't see until you've already signed. So I met with the minister personally. And I asked one question: do you want me for my voice, or for your headlines? He didn't answer. That was enough. I declined. Not because I was afraid, but because I was done being used, even by well-meaning hands. Instead, I partnered with 3 independent, women-led NGOs. We formed a coalition. No state funding. No political tether. We called it Her Terms. And we set the rules ourselves. She joined the team as lead education strategist. Her first program? A curriculum module called Consent, Contracts, and Courage, taught in secondary schools by girls who once feared their own voices. She smiled one night as we prepped slides. You know, if you told me in high school that the girl who once hid bruises with concealer would be building national policy, she wouldn't have believed you, I said. No, she replied. But she would have hoped. He emailed me from Zurich. Subject: it's quieter here. I'm stepping back from my father's firm. You were right, Liora. There's more to build than empires. If you ever want to turn Her Terms global, call me. I've got teeth and funding. For once, I smiled without bitterness. Because maybe wolves don't always have to hunt each other. Sometimes, they guard the same ground. I stood in the mirror one morning, brushing my hair, phone off, inbox ignored, and I realized something. No one was calling me a victim anymore. No one was calling me brave either. They were calling me CEO, founder, director. Not because I asked for their permission, but because I named myself. I used to dream of someone rescuing me, but I learned to rescue myself. And then I learned something even rarer: how to build a life that didn't need rescuing in the first place. Because I wasn't the girl they sold anymore. I was the woman who wrote what came after. Some ghosts don't knock. They arrive in envelopes, in handwriting you recognize before you read a single word. And suddenly, the past isn't dead. It's sitting in your hands, waiting to be opened. The envelope. No return address. No stamp. Just slid under my office door in the middle of a rainy Tuesday. Cream-colored, sealed with old wax, like a message from a different time, a different life. The handwriting, on the front? Sharp. Controlled. Miling. I didn't want to open it. I sat there for hours. The letter on my desk, my fingers resting beside it, as if touching it too long might burn me. Because it wasn't just a letter. It was a fracture in the wall I'd spent years sealing. But still, I read it. Because part of me needed to know. Was it an apology? A curse? Or just a final attempt to control me? The letter. Liora, I won't ask for your forgiveness. I think we both know I never earned it. I was cruel. And worse, I was a coward. I told myself I was doing what I had to. But you were a child. My child. And I gave you away like a ledger entry. People keep telling me to make peace with God. But I think God turned his face from me the day I let them take you. I see you on the news now. They call you a firestorm. I believe them. I see myself in your eyes, but not the part I'm proud of. You became everything I wasn't brave enough to be. I'm dying. Cancer, they say. I don't want pity. I just didn't want to leave without saying it at least once. I'm sorry. For what I did. For what I didn't do. For what you had to become because of me. You don't owe me an answer. But if this finds you, know that the last thing I ever felt proud of in this life was the day you left me behind. Mailing. I didn't cry. Not then. Not after. Instead, I folded the letter, tucked it into a drawer beneath old case files and grant applications. Not because I wanted to forget, but because I needed to. Remember her exactly as she was. No softer, no harsher. Human. Broken. Fallible. And dying. Faye asked if I would go see her. "It's not weakness," he said. "Closure is for you, not her." But I already had closure. Her letter wasn't forgiveness. It was finality. The chapter didn't need another scene. It needed a period. That night, I opened an old box I'd kept sealed since I left home. Inside, one photo. I was 6, missing a tooth, smiling too big. And beside me, mailing, not scowling. Not cold. Just young. Before the world turned her into a weapon. I slipped the photo beside her letter in the drawer. Not as a tribute. As a reminder of who I will never become. She gave me life, then tried to sell it. And in the end, gave me the one thing I never expected from her. The truth. And that was enough. You can't rewrite the past, but you can build something that makes the pain make sense. I wasn't looking for revenge anymore. I was looking for something bigger. A reason I survived. The house I was sold from. It was smaller than I remembered. The roof sagged. The bricks were stained with rain and memory. The rusted gate still creaked the same way it did the night they pushed me through it. But I wasn't afraid of it anymore. I stood outside that day, not as a girl returning home, but as a woman ready to repurpose the grave they built for her. It wasn't hard. The house had been abandoned for months, technically foreclosed, legally worthless. But to me, it was priceless. I paid in full. No negotiations. The realtor asked, "What do you want it for? Investment?" I smiled. Resurrection. I brought in a team. Not designers, not architects, survivors. Women from the undersigned project. Former clients, volunteers, single mothers, girls who knew what it meant to be discarded. We stripped the rot together. Painted over the stains. Rebuilt the roof with calloused hands and second chances. Room by room, we turned trauma into shelter. We didn't erase what happened here. We rewrote it. It needed a name. One that didn't sound like pity. We debated for days. Until one of the girls, a 17-year-old named May, pointed to a beam of sunlight hitting the wall and said, "What about the lighthouse? Not for ships, for girls. For the ones trying to find their way back." Everyone went quiet. Then we nodded. Because she got it. Because that's what we'd become. A beacon made from broken pieces. 6 girls came the first week. One had a black eye. One hadn't spoken in 2 days. One clung to a stuffed bear like it was her last bone of trust. I didn't give them speeches. I didn't tell them it would all be okay. I just handed them a key. And whispered, "This place belongs to no one but you." She painted a mural in the main hall. A phoenix, rising from a crumbling house. Beneath it, the words, "They tried to sell her, so she bought herself back, twice." We didn't sign our names. The house wasn't about us anymore. It was for every girl who thought survival was the end of the story. Now they'd see, it's just the beginning. Letters that arrived. One from a social worker in Shandong. One from a school principal in Gansu. One from a girl named Sumi who wrote, "I saw your interview. I didn't know we were allowed to leave. Thank you for showing me I could." I kept those letters in a box under my bed. Not for pride. For proof that legacy doesn't come from blood. It comes from who you reach when you're no longer trying to save yourself. I was once the girl in that house, waiting for someone to stop what was coming. Now, I am the woman who built the place they can run to, not to be saved, but to remember that they never needed saving, just a door that opened, without a price. They said I was ruined, unwanted, disposable, but I rose anyway. And now they say I'm powerful, but they're wrong again. I am free. It came printed in gold. International Summit on Youth Empowerment, a 3-day event in Geneva with leaders, activists, and policymakers from 40 nations. The email read, "We would be honored to have Liora, founder of the undersigned project, director of her terms, and survivor turned changemaker, deliver the closing. Keynote address." I reread the subject line 3 times. Keynote, not survivor. Not girl who escaped. Not the one who sued her family. Just Liora. As the plane took off, I thought about all the versions of myself I was leaving behind. The child who begged not to be sent away. The girl who signed contracts with trembling hands. The fighter who wore vengeance like armor. The woman who learned to wield fire without burning her future. They were all pieces of me. But the version stepping off that plane? She had no chains left to break. I stood before 2,000 people in a hall built for power. They called my name. Applause echoed like thunder. But I didn't let it shake me. Because I didn't come here to be praised. I came to speak. I looked out at the faces. Some were tired, some were eager, some were skeptical. But they were listening. And that was enough. When I was 16, I was sold by my family to pay off a debt. They told me I was lucky, that I should be grateful, that my silence was love. But silence is not love. And survival is not a finish line. I didn't escape to be a symbol. I rebuilt to be a start. Today, I run shelters, sign laws, and help girls who are being told the same lie I once believed, that they are only valuable when they are obedient. But let me say it now, clearly. So the whole world can hear. I stepped closer to the microphone. You do not have to be obedient to be worthy. You do not have to forgive to be free. And you do not have to be anyone's daughter to belong to the world you build. Silence. Then, standing ovation. And this time, I let it move me. Not as applause, but as closure. After the summit, I returned to the house in Anhui. Not the one I was sold from, the one I built. The lighthouse. I walked into the office and pulled out one last sheet of paper. I wrote, "To the girl I used to be, they tried to bury you in shame, but you grew roots. They tried to chain you in silence, but you found your voice. And now, the world calls you powerful. But I call you something better. Whole." I signed it with no last name. Just, after Rebirth, I didn't just take back the money, or the name, or the house. I took back myself. And that is worth more than anything they ever thought I was worth. Because I'm no longer the girl they sold. I am the woman who can never be bought again. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you loved it and you would love for more, kindly comment below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon for more amazing content. Drop a comment with your favorite moment, and I'll see you in the next one.